Hello, this is Craig. This is day 8 of the 30-day video challenge. I began this challenge just over a week ago to get better at talking on camera. And so each day I spend about 5 to 10 minutes speaking on a topic, whatever comes to me that day, whatever I'm inspired to speak about. So yesterday, day 7, I spoke about how as creators do we learn to handle or how do we as creators learn to process feedback that we get from people in relation to our work, whether that's something online, whether that's in person, whatever you're creating, whether you're singing, whether you're performing, whether you are writing something. You could be writing articles, you could be writing a book, you could be making videos, could be making music of some sort. Whatever you're creating, how do we handle any type of feedback that we get for our content? Yesterday, I spoke about two different types of motivation: intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And so, as creators, whether you're writing an article, making a video, whatever you're doing, there's a tendency as you start to look at views of maybe of your article, maybe views on how many people have watched your video, there is this tendency to you get kind of a boost when you see that people have watched it, maybe they commented on it, maybe they liked it. You get some sort of boost that says someone liked something that I put out there in the world. And so initially, you may write whatever it is, or you may film a video because you wanted to create that piece of work. And then someone comments on it, someone gives you a thumbs up, someone subscribes to your channel. And all of a sudden, what started for the reason of creating now can become something different, because it's one thing to create it and to want to create a piece of either writing or like video or music. It's one thing to want to create that, but once someone gives you some feedback on it, that's like another layer of motivation. And so as creators, there are times when we get lost in that form of motivation, which is extrinsic, which is like people like what I put out there. People commented on what I put out there. They viewed and read and shared what I wrote. And so we can get lost being motivated by that extrinsic motivation. And this is very dangerous. And I think creators of all types get distracted by this type of motivation because they start with the purest of motives, but then someone sees it, someone notices, someone comments, and all of a sudden there's this fascination with the attention of other humans. And we like getting that feedback. We like someone patting us on the back and saying, good article or good video. And so there's nothing wrong with receiving that feedback and getting some sort of satisfaction because someone liked something you put out there. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But I think there's this tendency, like I said, to get distracted by that. There's a tendency to get lost by it. It's similar to like if you put out a podcast episode and you put it out there into the world and you go to look at the metrics for that particular episode, and there's two people that downloaded it. So two people downloaded something that you spent a few hours on because you spent maybe 30 minutes or an hour recording, depending on the length of the episode, and then you may spend another hour in edits. And that is bare minimum, maybe 2 hours. So you've just spent a couple hours doing something, putting a podcast episode out, and only two people downloaded it and maybe listened to it. And so, depending on how long you've been doing that, that may be completely discouraging, or that may get you excited that two people listen to this. But as time goes on, and you begin to have maybe 5, 10, 20 people download your podcast, and then all of a sudden you go back to getting two people download and listen to that episode, it can be quite discouraging. And all of a sudden, you're starting to question yourself and you're starting to ask questions like, what did I do? Was the topic that I chose not very interesting? Was it something that I did when I recorded it? If it's just audio, was it my voice? Like, did I sound right? Did I enunciate? Did I speak loud enough? Was it the quality of my audio? Is there something wrong with my microphone? And so all of a sudden, you're starting to question everything about your creative process because you maybe started out and you had just a few people paying attention to your work, and then you had quite the boost of downloads, and maybe you went to 20 downloads, you went to 50 downloads, and you felt like you're on top of the world. And then you kind of have an episode that doesn't perform so well, and all of a sudden you're back to down to like a few people that have downloaded and listened to your podcast. And so all of a sudden your expectations are different. And now your expectations have gone from, hey, a few people listen to something I put out there and you're thrilled, to, hey, 20 or 50 people downloaded and listened to something I put out there. And so once you go from those few people listening to it to quite a bit more, like 10 or 20 or 50, your expectations have already changed. Your expectations are no longer, hey, one person listened to it. Great. You're not super excited. You're not pumped about it just because one person checked it out. Instead, you start to appreciate the number of people listening to it. And so your expectations have changed to, in order to be excited, I need 10 or 20 or 50 or 500 people to download this for me to know I did a good job. And so this extrinsic motivation starts to take hold if you're not careful to kind of monitor how much attention you're giving it. So, my suggestion is, yeah, look at those metrics. Look at the analytics behind the podcast so you know when things do well, so it can kind of help guide your decisions. But don't get overly obsessed at looking at those numbers. Because what I have learned is that a lot of things affect the outcome of whether people download it or not. And it could have nothing to do with you putting out a quality episode of a podcast. You could do a fantastic job and no one listens to it, or two people listen to it, or whatever that number is that's low for you. And so, you've got to be careful about your expectations. And you've got to not let the number of views, the number of likes, the number of comments dictate what you do as a creator, in the sense of you can't let it drag you down emotionally. Of course, it's exciting when you get a big boost and a bunch of people have downloaded your podcast. That is super exciting. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is try not to get wrapped up too much in the numbers. Don't lose that desire to create something, that thrill to put something out in the world. Whatever motivates you to create something new and original, whether you're writing an article and you have a certain viewpoint on it, or you're writing an article because it's telling your story. Don't lose the original don't lose the original reason why you put that creative work out there. You have to be intrinsically motivated and not let the extrinsic motivation take over. And so, as long as you're creating and your core motivation for creating is because you want to create something and put it out in the world, that is the key. Once you start losing that balance, and now you start to be extrinsically motivated, where you're waiting on someone to like your video, you're waiting on someone to like your post on Instagram, you're waiting on someone else is the key. When you're waiting on someone else to motivate you to do more, you really have given control over to something you have absolutely no control over. So I think that's just a really important reminder. It is for me every day because there are times when I get a boost because, a bunch of people download a podcast episode or a bunch of people share an article on social media that I wrote, or someone likes my video. And so right now, my opinion of my videos is pretty low because I'm brand new to this. And so if one person likes something that I put out on YouTube, I'm thrilled about it. If two people, if 10 people do, it gets more and more exciting. So my expectations for video are much lower than they are for other mediums like writing or maybe for podcasting if it's audio only. So you just got to manage your expectations. You have to be careful to not get lost in these numbers. You need to remember the reason why you create and never lose hold of that. And the best way that I have found to not lose hold of that is to be inspired by other creators. It is to watch other people that create videos, that write, that put stuff out there, that record music. And those people inspire me. Their work inspires me, and it helps me remember why I create. And so you've got to find those ways to help you remain focused and remain grounded and not to lose sight of why you do what you do. So I hope this is helpful. I like to continue this conversation as a creator and talk about these issues of why we do what we do, how do we keep focus, and how do we keep a good mindset, a healthy mindset, because we're in this for the long term and we want to do this for the right reasons. So I hope this was a helpful video. Again, thank you for watching this video. Until tomorrow, bye bye.